So I think my writing hugs the line between commercial women's fiction and domestic suspense. I like to add a bit of humor here and there, and there's always a romance plot and kind of some racy sex scenes. So I tend to have mystery, family relationships that are pretty messed up. There's a lot of clashing of family dynamics going on. Yes, and a bit of lusty, surprising sex scenes.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, and the Author Podcast, where we bring great authors on from around the world to talk about their journey as authors, to hear about what they're working on, and even the next thing they're working on, because authors seem to like to write a lot of books, which is great. And today's no exception. Bella's on the podcast today. We're going to be talking about her journey. She's a doctor too, which makes it amazing. So the doctor's going to see us all now. I'm excited to have her here on the podcast. Bella, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. And it's nice to connect with a fellow Canadian. I'm living in Melbourne, Australia, but yes, my first Canadian podcast.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So a Canadian in Australia, like how much better can that be? Like,
yeah, it's pretty
That's a great
good,
combo.
I have to say. And I felt truly Australian living over here, last summer, because we went to Adelaide, which is where my husband's family is from. And I never normally swim over there because there's so many sharks in the water. But it was a beautiful summer day. And my daughter and I just thought, let's do it. And we didn't even have our proper bathing suits. So we just had undies and tank tops, and we were running towards the waves. And then this really chilled lifeguard came over and he said, hey, apparently there's a shark out there, so you might as well just come on back. And my first thought wasn't terror and horror, which it always would have been in the past. It was like irritation, but we wanted to swim. And then my second thought was, well, we can just wait for 20 minutes and then go back in. And I thought, I now have a true Australian mentality.
It's just a shark. It's not that big a deal, right?
Right.
Okay. So I live near Lake Ontario, and we don't have a lot of sharks in Lake Ontario. So, yeah, we're pretty good that way. But That must be a beautiful place to live, though. Like, come on.
It is. I have to say, though, like Melbourne, where I am now, and Vancouver, where I was raised, and even Montreal a little bit, do share quite a lot of similarities. It's that coffee culture. It's pretty liberal and arty. So I
Nice.
feel really at home in all those spots. But yes, the big blue skies sure help my mood.
What do you miss about Canada that you don't get down there?
I think I miss the cozy Christmases, the Christmas lights, that feeling when you're in a warm home, because the central heating's not very good. They haven't really figured out how to do their homes so that in the winter it's warm. So it's actually pretty common here to go to someone's house in the winter and they're wearing two sweaters and a toque, which is unheard of in Canada. You're in a t-shirt inside. So that's I'm used to it all now.
Okay. Well, but you do miss us over here in Canada, though, right? You do miss us a little bit.
I do.
Okay. Your Timmy's run to get Tim Hortons coffee or your maple syrup or something. There's something about Canada that you miss.
I use maple syrup daily. So I've got that happening. It's in all my salad,
There you go.
all my roast vegetables.
There you go. Good. Okay. So your author journey, how did all this start for you? I always love to get this kind of as our starting point of our conversation, because people are listening to this as new authors and they're trying to figure out their whole journey as an author, and they love hearing about other author journeys. So where did it all start for you that becoming an author was your thing?
Right. I think I might try to answer this in two ways. And one is jumping forward first to say that when my mom came to visit me last in Canada, in Melbourne, she was watching my morning routine and she said, "You're just like your father." And I don't have many memories of my father. We left Australia when I was 3 with my mom. And I only came back, later in life to spend a bit of time with him. But he was a writer and a painter and a sculptor and, fully art in all different directions. And he would wake up every morning, my mom now tells me, and make, the cafetiere Italian style coffee on the stove, and then go and find somewhere quiet to write. And this is what I do every day. So maybe where I started writing was this DNA thing of making this coffee on the stove and finding a quiet place to write, although I have no memories of it. In my own life, though, I had a knee accident when I was 12. I had gone to a friend's cabin, and I was with about 5 friends and one of the moms. and we were all playing around and dancing, and I was doing a pirouette, and I tore this massive damage to my knee just dancing. It's an agony, and the mom had got all the girls into the car. We were driving to the hospital. It's pouring rain, and I just sort of organically in my head wrote this poem about the raindrops on the window and how mesmerizing I found them. I think that acute agony was sort of spurred on this sort of creative way of viewing the world. And then I went into the hospital. I was there for quite a few weeks, and lots of things happened. I had another friend's mom, come in and start reading me poetry. And she gave me a beautiful book of poetry and also just a notebook to write in. So I started writing my first poems. And also I got my period in hospital during those first 3 weeks, or those three weeks I was there. And also there was 2 patients in the same room as me that had cystic fibrosis, these young, lovely creatures. And I had overheard the nurses talking about these girls going to be dying. And so that all those things at once were really pretty profound. And I really haven't stopped writing since that time at the hospital.
Wow. Okay. What kind of authors inspire you as a fellow author? Is there somebody you look to and kind of go, I like elements of what they do, and they kind of have an impact on you? Anybody stand out? Yes.
So, in my earlier days, I was really into sort of the classic, when I was a teenager and in my 20s, the classic novels. I liked Anais Nin a lot, Hermann Hesse. Then I kind of was in a chick lit stage where I was liking, really funny writing like Marion Keyes. Then sort of more commercial women's fiction, Jennifer Weiner, Jodi Picoult. And now I'm really quite admiring writers like Liane Moriarty for her subject matter, Big Little Lies, The Husband's Secret, Nine Perfect Strangers. She's really taking, humor, characterization, and then throwing in these awesome plots that massive HBO, producers want to do these blockbuster ideas. They want to bring them to life. So I admire how she's taking over Hollywood. I want to do that too.
Of course, it's a matter of time. It's going to happen. How would you describe your own writing then? And kind of explain that to us as a new reader.
Thank you. Yes. So I think my writing hugs the line between commercial women's fiction and domestic suspense. I like to add a bit of humor here and there. And there's always a romance plot and kind of some racy sex scenes. So I tend to have mystery, family relationships that are pretty messed up. There's a lot of clashing of family dynamics going on. Yes, and a bit of lusty, surprising sex scenes.
So as an author, I like kind of going down this path. As an author, are you kind of like overseeing a world as you're writing and you are separate from it and you're writing from a distance, or are you finding yourself blended into the characters to some degree? How do you kind of do this?
Yes, it's different for each book. With Weekend Friends, which came out last year with Postal Press in the States, it was set in both Alaska, where the characters were from, and then they moved to Boca Raton in Florida. So I really felt like those characters were alive and lived in Boca Raton. So when it was time to finish the book and send it off, and it truly was a grieving process not to be there with them. But they didn't feel like me. They just felt like this, community of people that were so true to life. So yeah, it's quite sad to say goodbye to that book.
How do you pick a location like that? Like, why Alaska and Boca Raton? Like, how did those become the main focus of that book?
Yes. So I knew I wanted to center originally on a family, a mother, a daughter, a mother, a husband, and a daughter, and then the husband mysteriously dies. And I wanted the mother and daughter to go on a really big journey. So I chose those geographical places to sort of show what vast difference there was, from the harsh and intense tundra of Alaska, quite isolated. Like the original relationship, there was a lot of libido issues with the husband. The wife was not fulfilled. She was fulfilled intellectually, but not physically. And then I wanted to take this pairing, mother and daughter, to Boca Raton, which is, so opposite from Alaska and into this sort of brash, exciting, sunny, salty situation where the sun could also help them like literally heal their heart.
Okay, so you're a Canadian in Australia. Those are two different places.
Hey, I
Very
never
different,
thought about
right?
that. That's clever.
Right.
I hadn't thought about that parallel.
So is that maybe have something to do, maybe?
Oh,
Partially?
I never thought about it, but I am here trying to heal my heart, and I think sunshine helps. So, and I think the healing process has been pretty good. And I just mean healing like in life, because we all sort of have to heal over our childhoods, don't we?
Right.
Yeah.
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 And then the occasional shark.
That's right.
For, just for having that as well, right? Okay, so how you talk about your dad, making his coffee in the morning and writing. What is your ritual? Is it any different from that than what your father did back in the day?
Well, I'm kind of like if my most obsessive thing this year so far is morning routine. So I love this question. And one of my big goals now is to make my evening routine as magical, which I'm failing at every day. I'm just scrolling and like in my trackpads and I'm eating chocolate. Like you name all the things you probably shouldn't do at bedtime these days, and that's what I'm doing. But my morning routine, I have nailed. So I wake up around 6. I've been waking up early to write for many years now. But before I would wake up and I'd run to my email and I'd run to the coffee and it would be like trying to fill a hole inside of me that, yes, today I'm going to get great news from my agent about a book. Or, there's sort of like this ambition that was driving me to get to the computer screen, like something that's not the purest place that was driving the intensity. So I wanted to put a break between those two spots of waking up and then doing the things I love to do in the morning. So now I wake up, I grab my dog, Benson. I find somewhere to meditate. I put Benson on my lap. And like that's, if you find it hard to start meditating, if you have an animal, they're the best way to make it a transition into daily meditation because it's so cozy. You're just like sitting there cuddling your pet and breathing. So I do that for 10 minutes. I sort of had done some research about the different types of morning routines, what other people are doing, and combined a few methods. So I tend to meditate for 10 minutes, think about 3 things I'm grateful for, and not necessarily like, my health, but it could be just like, oh, yesterday was warm and the feeling of like the breeze on my cheek was really nice. Because I was wearing a t-shirt for the first time because it's spring or something. So nothing doesn't have to be major or that deep. And then I've tried doing this kind of weird manifestation thing. I thought the word, sort of cringed at the word of manifestation before this year. But I've been trying it out, which is visualizing something that my heart's desire as though it's already occurred. And I know a lot of athletes do this. Speaking of the all those Olympians are doing this. They're visualizing themselves, doing the race, landing the jump, and I'm visualizing myself with my goals. And then I make the coffee, and then I write. And then I deal with the kids. So that's my morning routine. And it's really fueling me in a really terrific way.
Any tips for a young author trying to create that routine? Is there anything that if you could sit down with a room full of authors who are eager to learn how to build a routine into their writing practices, any tips that you give to us? Yeah,
that's a great question. And, I think a lot of new writers feel really intimidated because maybe they're expecting like, I'm going to sit down and write quality material and I'm going to be really, proud of what my writing is, or they sit down and they just don't even know where to start with what to write. So there's that sort of pause between getting to your computer and being in the flow. And I think it's important to figure out where your power hours are. Like for me, I like it quiet in the morning. I don't like anybody else around. I don't want to see laundry or chores or anything or hear people that need things from me. I just want to be in a cave. Other people, their creative magic is, late at night or maybe at a coffee shop with lots of people around. So it's sort of figuring out where do you work best. And I also think it can be great for your writing routine to already know what you're going to be working on before you sit down. So it's not like, oh my God, what do I do? And all that judgment, because the self-judgment kills creativity. So if well, this week I'm going to try to write maybe on the weekend. I've got lots of work on. So I'm just going to work on Saturday and Sunday. I'm going to go to my favorite coffee shop and I'm going to turn my phone off so I'm not distracted. And I'm going to work on maybe not chapter 1, but I'm just going to work on some character shapes. So I'm going to think about my main character on Saturday, and I'm going to answer a character interview, and then I'm going to try to just free write from her point of view and ask her questions. So then when you sit down, you're kind of not so stumped necessarily. You have a bit of an idea. So that's one way, I think, to counter that sort of limbo state that we can get into, that being paralyzed by not knowing what to do when we find the time to write.
We've been talking a lot about coffee so far together, between your father, cafes, coffee shops, Tim Hortons here in Canada. A lot of coffee talk here. So let's imagine you walk into your local cafe down there, way down where you are now, and you see of the corner of your eye someone sitting with a copy of your book, one of your books, sitting on the table with them. They haven't opened it yet, but they're just getting their order. They're getting set up. And you look over and you see them sitting with your book. A, what are you going to do? And B, what would you say to this person before they read that book in front of them that you wrote? Like, tell me, what would go through your mind? How would you deal with that situation?
I would cover your ears because it's going to be I'd be like,
I would scream.
I would squeal. Yeah. Happiness. I'd be so excited. I couldn't stop myself because I haven't seen that yet. I've had 2 books published. I've never seen anyone walking around with it in the wild. What I have with columns, I used to be a columnist. I used to see my picture on the newspaper and people, so I did have that experience 15 years ago. But more exciting if I saw someone holding Weekend Friends. I would squeal loudly and I'd be embarrassed. I might even cry because I'd find the moment so big. And I'd just say, I wrote that. I'm so pleased you're reading it. Like, what do you think so far? Sort of engage in conversation with them.
What would they need to know about that book before they started reading? What would you say to us?
I'd say the cover, I've got it here, is maybe a little bit misleading because it's kind of got quite a happy sunshine vibe. And I suppose that's what I was talking about how my writing generally does have fun elements and racy elements, but it can be exploring sort of darker things as well. So we decided not to have a trigger warning on those front pages, but I would probably say this book, I hope you enjoy it. I was trying to talk about things that are pretty hard to talk about, with young girls, mental health, bullying, social media, the pain girls have when they're not included, and how that's like, done up in a modern setting with Snapchat and things like that, and how this infects moms and mom rage about it all. So there are, triggers in those areas, and, some scenes that are really, really sad.
Who's your ideal reader for that book then? What age group? Tell us more about the ideal person for this. Might be a great gift idea for someone as well, right? So
yeah.
Who is this for?
I don't think women in their younger, like 20s probably wouldn't be their cup of tea so much. So I'd say mid-20s to up would suit, because we have 2 point of view characters. We've got Rebecca, the mom, who's in her mid-30s in this book, and struggling with getting over her husband who mysteriously died, a new relationship in Florida with the school principal, which is, secret. And then I also have Amy's point of view, who's 12, and she's the one that's in a world of pain and is hiding quite a few secrets. And so there are those 2 different point of views, but there's also grandmother characters in it that come into it. So it's quite intergenerational about complex female relationships, mother-daughter, daughters and their friends, mother-mother, and then a grandmother, mother, granddaughter. Yeah. So lots of female focus for sure.
What satisfaction do you have as an author now that book is out in the world?
It's everything. Like, my whole life goal was to have children and to get a novel published. And I was being really tongue-in-cheek, but I was like, when this got published, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I could die happy. Like, if I hadn't got my novel published, it would have been very hard to, I've been working on trying to get a novel published for 20 years or something. So, and I feel like in my heart of hearts, I mean, I write every day. I write on Christmas. I write on holidays. I I do this all the time. It's who my identity is. So to be a writer without a novel is pretty hard. And that's a lot of the journey for a lot of us out there. It takes, it's getting more and more competitive to get a novel traditionally published. That's why a lot of people are doing it indie and having great success. Many of my friends are best-selling indie authors. Yes, but for me, I wanted a book that was traditionally published novel, and that was my greatest wish.
And it's come true.
It's come true. So
it's great.
And it has been disheartening on the other side of it, as these things always are. I found the PR aspect of it, and not being able to, like in Australia, it's for sale through Amazon, but not at bookshops. It was briefly at a bookshop. It's for sale here, but I had to arrange that. But yes, just the whole PR side of it was really difficult, and certainly so different than when I had my last book published, 12 years ago or something, which was creative nonfiction. With that book, I had like the PR. I had tons of PR, and not great sales, mind you, but the writer wasn't responsible for, trying to come up with bookstagrammers and book talkers and podcasts and all that type of thing. So, I've spent months and months and months, not unpaid, trying to push the book. It's a brutal landscape out there for all of us.
Yeah, I've heard that from several authors that say that they get all this great support all the way up to the launch of the book, and then it's like everyone kind of goes back to their corner, and you're standing here going, well, this is when I need everyone the most. I need help to get this out there and to tell more people about my book, and they feel really kind of on their own in this PR stage of the book. It's tough. Yeah,
and I think even if you're top selling, one of the best writers with the best publishing house, their writers are now really, because of social media, really expected to spruik their product, be online, be active, be interacting a lot of the time. And it's not something that's just handed to us the way it used to be 10 years ago, where it's like, oh, there's an interview, will you come and talk? And it's all set up. So people want to know who the writer is. And like I opened a TikTok account. I found that, it's pretty, I'm almost 50. That's like just really out of my comfort zone. And even talking to the camera into these posts and stuff, it's not something that I'm that comfortable with. I am better now. But that's sort of, that's part of advertising your book these days.
You mentioned the podcast, which we're doing right now, but have you seen any kind of return from guesting on shows? Has that been helpful for you at all?
Yes. So I haven't had any sales figures back yet from Weekend Friends. And so it'll be really interesting to see. But I was doing things like, paying for Facebook ads. I got my son's super tech savvy. He's almost 16. He, taught me how to do some of, complicated social media posts where you're slicing audio and things like that. Like when I do social media posts for this podcast, for instance, he'll help me figure out which bits to cut and then mix it with music.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great. It's great having someone like that in the house. But he made a wonderful book trailer. It was just incredible. And I put that up on Amazon ads for, 10 weeks or something. So I don't know how that affected the sales because I haven't seen any figures yet, which is kind of like, it's a bizarre method where you're putting your own money into things and you just don't know. It's
right.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about podcasting, which I do enjoy, is that a podcast is evergreen and people can listen to this anytime in the future. And it's still going to be great content all around the book. You could have 10 more books by then, but people will hear this and hear you talking about one of your first early books.
That's right. Wow.
And then get to hear you and how you've grown and how you've changed. Mm-hmm. It's kind of this snapshot in time, right?
True. Very true.
Yeah. It's exciting. Now, one thing we talked about when we had our little pre-chat was the possibility that you would favor us with a little bit of reading from the book. Because one thing I love is to hear an author read from their own book in their own words. Because as a reader, some authors will hire people to do the audiobook for them, which is fine. But when you hear it from the author themselves, there's just something special about that. So I'm giving you time to kind of find a little spot there to read to us. But,
you gave me time. You did, yes.
Yeah, right. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I just like the idea of hearing it through the author's voice.
Okay.
Because it really does help us connect as a reader to you and to the story. So I'll just throw the mic over to you. Just share with us a little bit. I'd love to hear a little bit from the book from you as well.
Thank you. So I'm just going to start off right with chapter 1. And what I've been doing, and it's quite popular these days, is to start right in scene. So, a lot of actions happening, and then other authors might cut back to before this happened. But here's my right in scene. It's chapter 1 called Okay, Teo, I'm Listening. And it's set in Anchorage, Alaska. What if the police figure out what happened? Will I go to jail? What will happen to Willow? Another sob erupts. I cover my mouth to muffle the sound, close Willow's bedroom door, and hurry back to the living room. Leonard Cohen's anthem is still playing on repeat. Stop. I need quiet to listen in case Willow comes out. With trembling hands, I shove the sleeping pills back in my pocket and turn off the music. Rain on the roof. Teo is seated in the same spot. Of course he is. Slumped against the corner of the couch, eyes shut. It gives me so much comfort having him nearby. Even though he's dead, he's still my husband. What should I do, Teo? His hands rest on his lap beside his phone. His wedding ring glints in the lamplight. Clutching my abdomen, I breathe in and out, a faint scent of port in my nostrils. Think. Why would he send such an incriminating text? Had the drugs already affected his thinking? Or was it deliberate? He wanted me to cover it up. Nothing Teo did was accidental. He thought everything through at least twice before speaking. Okay, Teo, I'm listening. The rain falls harder, pummeling the snow outside. A strange calm comes over me. Teo is guiding me. We are partners united with a focus of protecting our family of 3.
So, okay. Listening to you read that, I love how you get quiet. You make me lean in, and then you come back. Like there's this cool moment there. I love that.
Thank you. Such a fun book to write. It's just a pleasure.
It's exciting. Okay, so we're talking like the name of the show is Living the Next Chapter. So I always like to ask. We're here to promote and obviously enjoy and celebrate your book, but there's always this next thing that it seems to be happening in authors' lives. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of give us a sense of what's coming down the road for you to kind of give us a sense of what's happening?
I've just finished the draft of my new book. I won't say the title. It is set in Cape Cod, which I've had so much fun researching this area, and that's where Jaws was filmed. If that is any indication of what some of the themes might be of the book, I can say a woman goes missing. Sharks may or may not be at play. And it's kind of like almost a thriller light. So there's an ensemble cast. It's quite fun, but strong mystery.
When you're writing, do you kind of stop at some point and go, I'd love to see this as a movie?
Yes.
Do you ever write like that? Is that in your mind when you're writing?
It's so in my mind. I think because I'm such a now consumer, as we all are, of these huge Netflix shows, and the really like the series, the pacing, with the cliffhangers, that's really infiltrated my writing. That show, How to Get Away with Murder, for instance, is told in a really non-linear way. And my last book, which my agent wasn't a fan of, but I still am, and we'll see what happens to it, was influenced by this, because readers, they want, or people who want entertainment these days, I think whatever type, whether it's a podcast or a movie or a book, our taste has changed. Like that, we need the hooks now. We need it to be more hardcore, I think, with the adrenaline to keep people engaged. So that has changed my writing style quite a bit. So I really like that. I like serving huge twists. I like surprising the readers. I like trying to draw them in. And then once you've got them there, I think you can just slow down and have your more interpersonal scenes, more leisurely pacing. But I definitely think as a whole, we are influenced by the need to keep our readers or viewers' attention.
I love that. That's a weird feeling too when you're in the car with someone and you're the passenger and you think they're going to be turning one direction when they go somewhere else, but your body's going in that direction where you thought you were going to go. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, where are we going? Oh, you're going that way. There's that weird feeling of not having control.
Yeah.
in that moment,
For
right?
example.
And you're not driving, you're
Yes.
just a passenger, but you really wanted to go right and they went left. But I like when an author can do that. It makes you're just feeling like the story's taking you one direction,
Yes.
and then no, we're going this way now, and
It
you're
was,
like, but my body's still going in that
yeah.
direction. I gotta recalculate myself.
It was my husband's birthday on Friday, and we took him to this Munich house with the kids, teenage kids. And he thought we were just going to have like, some beer and some German food. But lo and behold, there was German music. At the end, they got, the MC was like, "Oh, is anyone having a birthday tonight?" And we got the husband up onto the stage, and it turned out to be a yodeling contest. So there's another twist. Like just living the twist is pretty fun too, especially with people that would despise nothing more than being on stage and having to do a yodeling contest.
So how did he do? Did he yodel he who and all that?
He got into the final and then he just completely choked. The last yodel, I mean, I have it I filmed it. It was just classic. Completely choked. Hilarious.
I don't even know where to start with a yodeling contest. That would be hilarious. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. I love those twists and turns. For you, I have one more question as we kind of wrap up today. I love having you on. Excited for what's coming down the road for you as well. Before I jump into the last question, kind of wrap up our chat today. Where are we sending people,
Right.
Bella? Where do we send people to connect with you? Where are you most active online so people can be in your world?
Sure. Okay. Well, to pick up Weekend Friends, it's on Amazon. So I would just Google Weekend Friends Bella and you'll find it. My website is www.drbella.com.au and that's Dr. Bella. I'm mostly on Instagram and like I said, TikTok now, and that's just my name. So at Bella Ellwood Clayton, 2 L's. And you'll also find if you're interested in any of my editing services I offer on my website, it just pops up a free 3-page sample edit or a 25-minute chat on Zoom or whatever to talk about the project if you'd like any assistance with your writing projects.
And that's exactly where I wanted to go for our last part here as we chat and we end off. You do author support. You help authors in different ways. Can we talk a little bit more about what you do and how you help authors? Because I really want to send people to you.
Cool. Right. So for the last few years, I've been working at NAC Literary Agency, which is a boutique agency in Australia. And I'm the head of editorial there. And I also run Dr. Bella Editorial, which is a freelance editing service. And I do all types of things. I can help people with their query or their agent hunting, as I like to call it, just strategizing, which agent suits you best, querying, the strategies behind who to query and when. I can, help. I work with best-selling authors or brand new authors. So sometimes they just chuck me their whole finished manuscript and I work on making the pace a little bit better and helping with characterization or what have you. Or with other people, it'll be like, my last project, for instance, last few projects have been memoirs. So try to figure out, in someone's life, which areas to focus on and how to structure the memoir to make it the most dynamic.
Any key things to consider when looking for a great agent? Is there something that you would say, this is kind of one of the things I would really want you to consider as an author when talking to an agent? This will make that agent stand out.
Gosh, well, even getting an agent is like being in the Olympics,
Right.
So before, I would take a few steps back and even think about the goals of wanting to write a book or wanting to get an agent or wanting to get published because, most of that, if you're a newer writer, it can take 5 years, 10 years, tons of money, all your passion, and the rewards are great if it pays off. It can take you in all different paths. But I tend to say to people starting off, if they're saying, like, I want to write a book, I actually tend to talk them down from that to start off with if they're really new. And I say, like, well, why don't we work on an article or a short story and have this finite project and then try to get it published and just start building up your name that way. So, trying to write a book or a novel from scratch is super challenging and may steal your soul. You may find yourself 10 years later having given all your free time and passion to it. This happens to so many of us. It's completely bewitching. And there are lots of ways I'm in my happiest there. And so many writers are when you're in the zone and you've found that world of characters, it's actual bliss. So there are great aspects to it, but tread cautiously because your soul may be stolen. Not to sound dramatic or anything.
Did I know? That's very author-like of you. We talked a little bit briefly about the Olympics, and I think that's something we can talk to authors about. Before you fall in love with the medal,
yes,
fall in love with the sport.
Completely. Right? And just think about, like, rather than, the whole thing, like, just, rather than starting a memoir, let's write a few short pieces and try to get them published in literary journals for creative nonfiction. And that can feel so good because you can have a goal that you can achieve maybe within a year versus this thing where people spend, like I said, 5 years, 10 years pursuing a dream. But then it's so unpredictable too. So a lot of, and great, like I said, so many of my friends are indie writers that are best-selling authors. They get to live every day like their dream life. They get to do what they love and get paid for it. So it can really work too.
It's amazing. Well, it sounds like you're living your dream life, sharks included. But the fact that you're doing what you love and good success is just around the corner for you. It's obvious it's coming.
Thank you.
So just keep doing what you're doing, keep writing, keep sharing. And I'm just so excited to have you on the podcast. It's really great to have you here.
I really enjoyed myself. I'm so comfortable talking to you. And it's been great. Thank you.
So when the unnamed book is available,
yes,
and ready, you're going to come back and share your next chapter with us.
Oh, I would love to.
All right. Definitely we'll hold you to that. Everyone, all the information for Bella is in the show notes. As always, when you buy Weekend Friends, please leave an amazing review.
Oh, please.
Because that helps other people to fall in love with the book as well. And it also is great information for the author so that the author can understand what you picked up from it, what your takeaways were. It'll help authors to be better as they write as well, to hear from their readers. So everyone leave a great review for Bella for Weekend Friends. And Bella will be back in the future to talk about more on Living the Next Chapter. So Bella, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun. Well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to How to Do This. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.